Well, it is day 2 of IEM Oakland right now. I'm joined by Ocelote, Carlos Rodríguez. Which one do you prefer now?
Well, that's a good question. I don't mind. My mom still calls me Ozzy.
Okay.
So,
Well, if your mom calls you Ocelote, I feel like everybody else can, right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So owner of G2, man running the show over there. First off, how's IEM Oakland been for you?
Oh, very good, very good. Very productive weekend. Lots of good meetings as well. And of course, I would have loved if the CSGO team would have reached the finals like we expected, but
Yeah.
it's a good result.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how G2 continues on following this event even. Let's talk a little bit about ownership right now, because I feel like this is such a crazy time to own an esports franchise. There's so much conversation happening about teams that are buying ownership into leagues or into tournaments, franchising, all this kind of crazy stuff. What is your life like dealing with all these kind of like different things that are happening in all the different games?
Well, I guess it's a very complex question, because the answer can vary. For example, morally speaking, I personally, morally, I love relegation.
Yeah.
Without relegation, I wouldn't have been able to make G2 be in LCS, right? We wouldn't exist in LCS without relegation. I mean, it's a culture. I grew up in a culture where relegation was good. Okay, the thing with that is that going to the first division, for example, in soccer, in European soccer, it is super rewarding. So for teams from second division to go up into the first division,
Right.
they spend money, they spend resources, and they try to do as well as possible to try to get into that group that is very rewarding economically speaking. Same for those teams that are in the first division. They don't want to drop, so they try hard, because if they drop, they don't have access to that monetary increase, right? So I feel like we miss that. So why would you have relegation if you don't reward economically the teams that are in the first division enough? It kills the purpose.
So because so many people look at relegation, especially in Europe, and they feel like this is just a standard in sports. But you're saying it's very different in League of Legends compared to soccer or football.
No, what I'm saying is that while relegation is not even relegation or no relegation is not right or wrong.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. It's just it's a cultural matter,
Right.
right? But if you happen to have relegation, then you for sure need to reward those teams that are in first division more than if there wouldn't be relegation, just because of it's pure mathematics, right?
Oh, okay.
However, if there is not enough reward from being in the first division, then you need to take away relegation, right? So there's 2 points. There's the moral point of me liking relegation,
Right.
which cultural point as well. I grew with it, and then there is the survivability.
Yeah.
I want a company G2 is like a human body. It needs
Right.
to be sustainable. It needs to be able to exist. And a company that spends more than it gets, that it generates in revenue, is not going to exist.
Right.
So I just want my company to be able to exist. And as of today, if every other game was like it was structured in its system as League of Legends is, then I wouldn't be able to make G2 profitable.
So you would like to see a system where the teams that are in the tier 1 division are rewarded extra or compensated extra for the fact that they had to fight to get into that, and that they're existing within a relegated system, right?
There are different layers.
Yeah.
Whatever system you decide for,
Yeah.
maybe no relegation, franchise, whatever you want to call it, or relegation.
Yeah.
Both regions, NA and EU, must have the same one.
Ah, I see.
Why is
Okay.
that? Because imagine you're a player from Europe, a really good player from Europe. Then you will obviously lean towards going to North America if North America has no relegation,
Yeah.
right? Because you will never drop.
Right.
However, that will by itself create an imbalance,
Yeah.
which Europe will lose talent and NA will get more talent. So you can't have relegation or not relegation here relegation. It's impossible.
So what
That
if
wouldn't work.
EU had a system in place where they still had relegation, North America didn't, but the teams that were in tier 1 LCS were rewarded extra to compensate for the fact that they're in the system that relegation exists?
Let's imagine in an ideal world
Yeah.
where we would find the perfect equation to make that work.
Okay, yeah.
Then it's good.
Okay, but you think it's hard realistically
I mean,
to do it?
theoretically it is good, but realistically it is impossible to
Yeah,
find the exact equation. How much money do you give them more to compensate for the, you know what I mean?
Right.
So in theory, yeah, you're right. But because it's so complex, then you need to have equal systems in both regions. Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what do you think of the fans who are so against the idea of removing relegation? I mean, Reddit, the League of Legends community, literally mocked the owners or this letter, reportedly alleged letter, for requesting it. Do you think they just don't understand the realities of the business situation?
Well, I'm a big believer that whoever thinks that's just wrong, he has his within his variables, the variables that he knows that is wrong.
Right.
So it's either he's missing variables to get a better kind of context of the whole situation, or we are playing wrong. It can be as well the case, right? But truthfully, if you look at the numbers, right, I try to be as pragmatic as I can with all this, right?
Yeah.
I just see that there is a clear. It's not a. We are not in a balanced system in League of Legends. Why is that? Because we clubs, players are in an open market territory. There is no salary cap. Therefore, they can always they can have biddings for them up until whatever. There's no cap. So we clubs are paying salaries in an open market. However, we clubs are not receiving revenue in an open market.
Right.
Let me explain. We are not having access to every partner we can. We are actually we are limited by simple rules of the league. So we cannot have every partner we can, first of all. Second of all, we cannot have access to media rights that theoretically, because we are part of the broadcast, we should have access to, right? You can argue more or less depending on the fact that we don't own the IP. Like obviously, soccer is not owned by anyone, right? But the IP here is owned by Riot. So truthfully, they should own some of the media rights. But because we appear, we are also entitled to part of those media rights. However, because we don't have access to that, we are not able to, you see all these little points, right? We're not able to generate the revenue in an open market. So you see the imbalance? We pay salaries in an open market, but we don't receive money in an open market. Therefore, we will always, as long as we want to be a relevant team, we will always pay more than we will receive. It's pure math. Not math, maths.
Yeah. Speaking about media rights, what do you think of the rumored $90 million deal that MLB Advanced Media might be talking to Riot about?
Well, it's fantastic news for Riot. They've been working on something like this for a long time, so it's fantastic. It's only good news. And at the same time, it'll make it easier for them to open up a conversation. When you're in a position where you simply don't have enough resources to justify opening up a conversation, it's normal that you I understand every party here. I understand people that love relegation, like I do. I understand people that don't like relegation, like a lot of American people don't like relegation. It's just a cultural thing. I understand Riot, what they're doing, because with their variables, what they have in their hands, they truly believe that what they're doing is right. So I'm not against that. It's just a matter. It's a bit philosophical, but
Yeah, sure.
Let's imagine, right, a political system. Okay, this is like a kingship, right? A kingship where Riot is the king, right? And of course there are good kingships, but you depend on the king being a good person and extremely empathetic and whatnot, right? Because Riot owns the whole thing or has a lot of market share, just because they own the IP, because they did a fantastic job again. All of us depend on the king being a good king.
Right.
And it's not about fairness, it's about recognizing the value every party generates. So we clubs generate value, the players generate value, and Riot generates value. And all of us should have a part of the cake because all of us generate value. So legally speaking, they could actually say, you know what, you get nothing. Legally speaking, that's right. But morally speaking, that system wouldn't make any sense. It's not sustainable. That's what I mean. And I feel like if you want to think big, if you want to think a world, like I'm pretty sure, you speak with Riot, and they have this vision of making League of Legends like the next super big thing. And if you want to think that big, you definitely need to be very inclusive and to have every party, like every club, every player, everyone involved super inclusive in the process. You want them to be your allies in this. You can't do this by yourself. You need every party. And it's just every party is super important, Clubs pay very high salaries. Clubs allow the players to live off the game. without having to even stream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it adds facilities. An inclusive process would definitely make things far easier.
One of the things that is interesting to me is that the community has been watching this situation from the sidelines, and it feels like they have a lot of commentary on this type of thing. But in sports and in traditional business, oftentimes a lot of these numbers are more disclosed. Like people have a greater understanding of the financials. You hear like, oh, like this company is sponsoring this team for $1 million a year, or whatever, right? They just signed this exciting deal. In esports, there's just no level, there's not very much transparency at all. We don't really know what sponsors pay. We don't really know what teams have to pay players. We don't really know anything like that. So the community is kind of, like you said, missing a lot of the variables or the context for the situation. Do you think that it would be helpful in the future, since the community seems to be more and more taking part in this conversation, for more of those numbers to be public, or for more people to have greater understanding or context for what are the real numbers that we're talking about between Riot and the owners? Because if the owners actually are making a ton of money, then maybe the conversation isn't that big. If they're losing a ton of money, all the community should be really worried, right? Because, like, I don't know, my favorite League of Legends team could go away. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in transparency. Actually, everyone in G2, every player has access to Slack, which is the application we use to communicate and work remotely. And they can have access to our sales talk, so they can have access to anything they want.
Sure.
So I'm a big believer in transparency, and I believe that if people would know what we know, maybe they would think the same, but they would be more empathetic.
Sure.
Riot would be definitely more empathetic. Like, hey, I disagree with you, but I understand your point of view. You just want survival, right? So let's talk. It's a different conversation.
Do you guys ever share your books with Riot so that they have an understanding of where you guys are coming from?
So that is a reciprocal. It has to be a reciprocal move, right?
Yeah.
If we are the only ones that share numbers, and we lack the context of their numbers, you understand what I mean? It has to be reciprocal.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm all in with that. I mean, I would love that. Everyone to share everything, right? To exactly share how much money they generate, everything, A transparent ecosystem will make sure that the ones that do better end up winning. It's like it's Darwin's evolution. I mean, just play under the same field, everyone knowing the same things, and just the one that does better will be ahead of the other one.
Well, obviously I want to talk to you about some of the other companies or other parts of your company that you have besides League of Legends, but such a big conversation topic.
It's a good conversation.
But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you would like to add, or that you think the community is lacking insight of whenever they're seeing, like several different types of leaked documents or alleged conversations or whatever?
I mean, I obviously, if as you saw, I didn't speak about any letter or anything.
Yeah.
I don't speak about the letter. I'm speaking about the whole context, and the generic aspects of all this, which is very, very complex. There's a lot of variables that I don't even know myself.
Sure.
I think the main point here is that a balanced ecosystem is an ecosystem where you have player unions, you have team unions, you have league unions, and you have the publishers who own the IP. That is the perfect open market, because everyone will pull those strings, and will make sure that at the end everyone is pulling so much. At the end everything is in the center, right? It's balanced, and that's not what we have right now, right? There's not even a player union, although it is true that players. It is true that players are getting compensated very well.
Yeah.
Okay, but there is now we are sort of starting with the teams union, but it's missing aspects here. As you can see, there is no league union, because Riot is the league. So it's too much market share. Therefore, the only thing we can do is hope that they are empathetic and mature enough to have a mature conversation. That's all we are hoping for. And that's it. I feel like that is just sustainability and balanced ecosystem. It's very straightforward.
Hey, forgive me if I can squeeze one more question here about League. Right before Worlds, Riot released that letter to the community about the revshare that they were planning and sort of their financial plans for sustainability for the next year and going forward. Do you have any specific thoughts about what they wrote there, or sort of the offerings that they were going to make to the teams and the players and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I have reservations, but because we are in the middle of the process, it would be too. It it would be silly to speak about it. Actually, I would love to, but I can't.
That's fair enough. Negotiations ongoing, I guess, is a good way to put it. Okay. All right, so let's set aside League of Legends. Let's talk a little bit about CSGO. How do you feel about the way CSGO is trending right now? We're seeing so much conversation around, people buying into leagues and all this kind of interesting stuff that's happening there. What do you think about CSGO? And even you can feel free to compare and contrast a little bit to League of Legends.
Yeah, I feel like CSGO CSGO is an extremely open market.
Yeah.
Anyone can create a tournament. Open source. That's why you see a lot of kind of tier 2 tournaments with tier 2 teams that are kind of being watched by a lot of people. Right. And at the same time, you see, E-League, ESL, ECS. Everyone is fighting with amazing prize pools and amazing player treatment to be the best. Yeah. So this competition, it's just fantastic. That also allows us clubs and players to negotiate with those leagues for either media rights or negotiate with those deals for just pure signing bonuses.
Yeah.
So we can play those leagues. This open marketness, or whatever it is
right.
you can call it, it's exactly what makes everyone profit.
Right.
And yeah, if the question is CSGO ROI positive for you? Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that, or do you have any concerns about the market getting a little oversaturated with all these tournaments? It's interesting, there's IEM Oakland happening this weekend, but also E-League is streaming some of their matches. So are you worried at all that we're splitting so much CSGO across all these different tournaments and that there becomes too much and it's hard to get kind of like a concentrated focus going? Maybe some of the tournaments go away or some of the leagues go away or anything like that?
Well, I feel that every extreme is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like the truth is not in the black or in the. Sorry for the voice crack. My voice is fucked up.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's not either. Both the black and the white
Yeah.
are wrong because it has too many downsides. So the truth is in the middle, right? And right now with CS:GO, it's so much of an open market. There just is too much liberty and freedom that it generates these examples of too many games, for example, right? So I would say that a system like the CSGO system, but more regularized, is the right system. This is in my opinion, because then you want to make sure that you limit the number of games. So every time Fnatic plays against G2, it's actually a game that you are looking forward to watch. It's not a game that you've watched 4 times this month. And that's what that is very corrosive for the game. For the game. When you watch the same game that is supposed to be the big deal so many times.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is what happened in StarCraft, right? That there were like 3 tournaments happening on a weekend, and the winner who won last week's major event lost in the tournament this week, and it wasn't even a conversation. It's so hard to figure out the storylines, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want to make sure you limit it, and at the same time you want to make sure that there's enough tournaments to...
So what's interesting to me about this is that, okay, so it feels like in this situation, in the opposite of Riot, Valve is not very interested in regulating this or stepping in. Certainly the tournament organizers are all going to compete to do as much as they can, but the only group that really has power to make sure that when Fnatic plays G2 it's a really big deal are the owners, right? Because you guys can decide okay, we're not going to go to this. The players to an extent, right? But certainly you guys are the ones deciding who to send the teams to, right? So from your perspective, do you think that there is onus on the owners to make sure that there's not too many tournaments, too many leagues, and we don't get oversaturated?
Yeah, of course. I speak from my point of view. Okay, I want every time a player with the G2 logo is playing, I want that moment to be as effective as possible.
Right.
And if that moment happens way too often, then it loses the special
importance.
Yeah, the importance exactly. Yeah. So I agree with you. It's a lot of the teams kind of uniting against this.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, you're screwing over somebody with this because there can only exist so many leagues if you take this decision, right? So we are in the process. It's a young industry, right? And as such, we see the example with Riot Games. We see that they're way laid back in that regard, but it's the beginning, right? It's a conversation. They just want the best also for the game. Everyone wants the best for the game. So it's just it's a process of negotiations slowly, of managing expectations slowly, meeting expectations slowly, and the same goes for CSGO. Right now, as you said, there are obviously flaws in the system, but because we are a young industry, we are just slowly getting there, slowly finding the right kind of equation, the right approach to make it perfect.
Is Overwatch the next big esport?
I don't know, man. We actually had the first Overwatch team, actually, way back.
Yeah.
The Alpha, I think it was. And we don't have an Overwatch team right now. But we are definitely, this is a very opportunistic kind of thing, right? We want a top 3 team in the world. And for that, you need to wait for the right moment.
Yeah.
And we have, obviously, a lot of information, but we still lack the key pieces of information.
Yeah. From Blizzard, you mean?
In general, right?
Okay.
In general, how much is the franchise gonna cost? Expected viewership, expected revenue generated. You need a business plan, right? You need to understand where those whatever 1 million or whatever are gonna buy you. Right now, I don't know. I just know I just know about the idea. The idea is great. Yeah, I have to wait. We have to wait.
Were you at BlizzCon a couple of weeks ago?
I was invited, but I wasn't there. Although I'm having talks with Blizzard very often, they're very good friends of mine, and they are fantastic people as well. They just want the very best for their game and the industry. And again, this is it's lovely because you see everyone trying to do different things actually, and none of them is necessarily bad.
Yeah.
It's just everyone is trying out what's up.
Different systems, yeah.
Exactly. So I believe that there is room for every system actually.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of again being empathetic, understanding, and kind of having a conversation.
Yeah. Do you like the tact that Blizzard is taking? Because it feels like in some ways they're going even further than Riot has in creating this sort of system where we don't know the details yet, but it certainly seems like they are this is a big thing, this is a franchise thing. People come in and buy it. We're talking to sports owners, we're talking to billionaires, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think I definitely think it's good because it's different and it's bold. I like bold and different.
Yeah.
But again, because he hasn't been done before, the amount of things that could happen, no one knows. Right? So you can only assume that this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. But they're assumptions based on nothing. It didn't happen before, right? Yeah. So in my eyes, this whole thing of, this draft system with the players and whatnot, I feel like, it could work because there are definitely sports that where that is working.
Yeah.
You have to also take in consideration the lifespan of the game. A system like that one with such a long term will only work if the game works for such a long term. Imagine you buy a spot in a league for and then 3 years after the game decelerates and you don't quite get the return of investment you made to buy that franchise slot. That'd be fucked up. So it has to be a business plan, and everyone has to look at it and kind of identify whether it makes sense or not. There'll be a bidding process most likely.
Yeah. All right, so winding down this interview, we're towards the end of 2016. What is the biggest, craziest thing that's going to happen in 2017 for esports? Your prediction.
Jesus, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You're always with the good questions, right? What's the craziest thing that will happen? Dude, what can be more crazy than what's happening already?
It seems like things keep getting more and more crazy, right? So there's got to be a crazier thing.
I don't know, maybe we suddenly all realize that this is all a bubble. And
oh boy, okay. That's a scary thing.
Realize this is all a bubble and shit, we are paying too much for this player.
Okay.
Immortals, no, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding, no, I'm kidding. No, he's my friend.
He's here somewhere. I'm going to go find him.
We have this beef between each other.
Okay.
But there's not that much difference actually. In fact, I don't even think there's a difference in salaries between NA and EU. Even though people actually may believe that is the case, my understanding is that the average salaries
across all games?
Across League of Legends. I'm talking League of Legends only. Is actually very even. Perhaps a little bit higher in NA, but it's not really. It's really even.
Yeah. So your 2017 prediction is we're in a bubble and everything is going to go down.
No, it's actually not a prediction. If it would happen, it would be mind blowing.
Okay.
But it could happen. It could happen. So it's really hard to predict something. There's just so much stuff happening right now. There's so much interest from everyone. So much dumb money being,
Yeah. Okay. So, final question. I've never been to Spain before. I get to go to Barcelona next month for League of Legends All-Stars. Yeah. Tell me what I should expect. Is it going to be nice? Yeah.
You should eat Paella for sure.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of paella.
Okay.
Potato omelette.
Okay.
That's fucking
Potato
sick.
omelet?
Potato omelette. This is sick. What else, man? You know churros with chocolate.
Yeah.
That thing is good too. Those three things I think that are mandatory. What else?
Barcelona, good city?
It's a great city.
Okay.
It's a great city. Yeah, Spain is a fantastic country.
Okay.
Have you been there before?
No, that's what I'm saying. I've never been, so I'm really excited. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I do not. I'm single.
That's a great moment to kind of look for a girlfriend.
Okay, I'll look around in Barcelona.
Beautiful ladies
Yeah,
in
thank
Barcelona.
you. Maybe you can show up in Barcelona and help me out.
Help you out? Be your wingman?
Yeah. We'll do that, right? Okay. And we'll talk about the bubble of esports. Anyway, thank you so much, Ocelote, for the interview. I really appreciate it.
very much.
Anything you want to say to the G2 fans?
Oh yeah, you know, this is actually a great question. A great question. Thank you very much. Yeah, what do you say? I mean, obviously you see all this G2 perception, the bad boy, whatever, you know. We anyway want to thank every single fan and everyone that follows us, even if you don't quite like us, but you follow our games. I want to thank you very, very much because at the end of the day, what we want to create is an entertainment industry, right? And I want the G2 to be as entertaining as possible. And of course, sometimes we may be too edgy. And I mean, if you don't try, you'll never. If you don't commit mistakes, right, you'll never learn, right? So of course, sometimes we've been too edgy, purposefully. Sometimes we've been way too laid back. So I guess it's about finding the right balance, right? But overall, just keep in mind that we're just always looking to kind of entertain the fan. And that's about it, right? So thank you very much to all G2 fans, and thank you very much to our sponsors as well, which we happen to be closing lately, quite a lot of them.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So yeah, thanks to all of you guys.
Thank you, Ocelote, so much for the interview. Very insightful. Always happy to have a conversation with owner who wants to be so candid and honest about everything that's happening out there. It's pretty good. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis.
For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things esports here at Yahoo Esports.